Okay, not long ago I did a video on the Vietnam Dung, and in there I made a bold statement that Trump was in position to do to China what Reagan did to the Soviet Union, and that is to take down the stronghold of the Communist Party. Here is more reasons to believe that. I recently watched a video that outlined the collapse of the three biggest Chinese banks within 3 months. They were Beijing Bank, the Jinsu Bank, and the Hangfeng Bank. This would be the start, in my opinion, of the collapse of the Chinese economy, and there is almost nothing stopping that from happening. But a couple things, and I'll get into that a little bit more. Right now, we're seeing the biggest collapse of any economy. Okay, and China is not the only country suffering through that. But for the sake of the Vietnam Dung, I'm going to explain why China's collapse benefits the Vietnam Dung. Okay. Already, we're seeing so-called investment experts warning people not to invest into China at all. Anyone that knows anything about economics will tell you that the one saving grace, or the one thing that could soften the blow of any recession, is manufacturing. Love him or hate him, Trump is the best thing that's ever happened to us here in the United States. When he took office, he knew that in order to survive any kind of recession that might be coming up, the United States would need to bring back manufacturing jobs. Trump saw that millions of American jobs were lost to China and knew he had to change this. And that's exactly what he did, in a big way, or in Trump's words, in a bigly way. Trump has created, since he's been in office, almost 700,000 manufacturing jobs. 700,000 since he took office. That's just in 3 years. This is a phenomenal feat and never been done by any other president before. But again, if you think of it this way, when Trump came into office, he inherited the Titanic after it hit the iceberg. I like to say that a lot. That's because he knows something big's happening worldwide as far as the economical crash is concerned. Whether or not it affects this country really depends on Trump. Okay, but he is so far positioning us to take the blow as soft as possible. So manufacturing jobs is a big plus. The media could try to spin this a million different ways, but there's no doubt that Trump is both helping America while damaging China. More and more companies are leaving China, and it's killing their economy. We're seeing these jobs go over to a lot of the countries that surround the South China Sea: Malaysia, Taiwan, Vietnam, Philippines. We're seeing that happen right now. So it benefits those individuals who are invested into the Dung. We talked about why. Okay. China's banks are failing. 60% of the Chinese banks are at risk right now. That's huge. 60% of their banks are at risk. At this current pace, we're looking at a loss of more than 50% of all their banks by the end of this next coming year. That's a rapid deterioration of the Chinese economy, any way you look at it. 15% of the Chinese GDP at this current moment is used just to pay off the interest of the old debt. Let me repeat that. 15% of their overall GDP is used just to pay off the owed debt. Their overall debt is 300% of their GDP. China can't take this much longer. So what does that mean as far as 300% of the GDP? So you take all the money that the people make in China and you put it towards paying off the debt. Okay, so the GDP is what the people make altogether. So if you take all they make in 1 year, you would have to multiply it times, they would have to do it 3 times in 1 year just to get caught up. So whatever you make in 1 year in China, you would need to make 3 times that amount. And that means everybody would need to make 3 times that amount just to pay off the debt that already exists. That's huge. So, and just this is really unbelievable. But China lost $11 billion in the market value in just 1 week. $11 billion in a single week of market value of their overall stock. That's something that's not been seen or heard of. All right. So that's a huge blow to China's economy. As each of China banks fail and collapse, there's a domino effect around the world, and it is a perfect example of why the current banking system around the world must end. This fiat system that we have must end. So how do we fix it? What banking system should we go into? There's only one method that we can go into that would prevent this from happening again and help what's going on. And that is a system that is backed by gold. As a matter of fact, China has more than hinted that that's the direction they're going into. If China goes into this direction, it'll force countries around the world to go into it no matter what. Once again, I think Trump is in a position to end the communist hold on China. They cannot continue to wage this trade war with Trump. Actually, in fact, the only thing saving China at the moment is the fact that most of the joint ventures in China currently have co-partners. There's two powerhouses that are helping China stay afloat. One of them is JP Morgan, who, along with another powerhouse, Goldman Sachs, is what's helping China stay afloat. Okay? They saw an opportunity to take advantage of the weakened China economy. Both JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs have heavy influence over our politicians, who are also heavily invested into China companies, mainly the Democratic Party. This is bad. So this means any policies that they put forward that are involved with what's going on in China, they're not going to pass policies to help the Americans because they're more vested in China. We've seen it happen for 8 years. All right. Under the Obama administration, a lot of these people were vested over there in China. Let me give you the example. I brought this up in other videos. The Bidens weren't just getting money for Burisma. Joe Biden's son also got $1.5 billion from China, but nobody knows for what. $1.5 billion from China. In addition to that, Joe Biden's brother got $1.5 billion housing project in Iraq. Okay, so yeah, those types of things in our politics should not happen. They should not be allowed to invest in any kind of companies in which they're going to make policy decisions on. Okay, so there's no doubt that China is getting hit hard. Many of its peoples have already relocated, adding to the financial burden of the Communist Party altogether. So once again, I say, like what happened with the Soviet Union under Ronald Reagan, we might see under Trump the same thing happen to China, and that is the collapse of the Communist Party. Okay? If not, at least I know that we are very close to a trade deal. That's about to happen sooner or later. If the trade deal happens, like I said before, the thing that's holding up the Vietnam Dong value and why they're able to manipulate their currency and get away with it is the fact that Trump is using those countries that are surrounding the South China Sea. China is losing thousands, and not just thousands, but tens of thousands of jobs to those countries. Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, Philippines, Taiwan. They're getting their butt kicked. And that's because people are not only moving their companies over there because it's cheaper for them, but they don't want to pay the high tariffs coming from China into the U.S. And in addition to that, a lot of the Chinese people are relocating themselves, ones who could get away with it. So I don't think it's too far-fetched to say that Trump is in position, just like Reagan was, to possibly cause the end of the communist stronghold in China. They're just getting destroyed. So eventually China's either have to give in to Trump's demand, in which the China trade deal happens. And in that deal, we already know that Trump said a million times that he is not going to allow China to manipulate their currencies anymore. In fact, he wants them to pass laws guarantee that. So in the past, what used to happen is China used to make all kinds of promises, but they never passed laws in their own countries. They would use that as their reasons for escaping out of their promises made. Trump wants the Communist Party not only to agree to something in a deal, but he wants them to pass laws that strictly forbid them from doing certain things like stealing our intelligence, our intellectual properties, manipulating their currencies, those types of things. So once the China deal is done, China is going to have to revalue their own currency. It's going to increase. It might not take a huge increase, but it's definitely going to increase much more than it is. But more importantly, all those other countries that so far have been able to get away with manipulating their currencies, like Vietnam, are not going to be able to do that any longer. They're going to have to revalue their currencies as well. And some people keep asking, what's the difference between a revalue and a reinstatement? A revalue is when you're manipulating your currency and it's low for no reason other than the fact that the government changed its value. To revalue it is to put it at its true form based on your GDP and other economical factors that determine the value of a currency. Now, in reinstatement is like when Kuwait was invaded by Iraq. They froze the value of the currency rate while Iraq had invaded into Kuwait. And once Iraq was out of Kuwait and a new government was installed into Kuwait, all they did is reinstate what the old rate was. The same thing is happening in Iraq. When the United States invaded them after what they did, their currency was then frozen. It was frozen at $3.22. So once their government gets established and the corruption is out of there, you're going to see them reinstate the rate to, just like Kuwait did, to the rate that it was before. Because the truth of the matter is nothing economically should have changed that rate. Now, I did post a video in which I showed the National Economics Research Center. They've done a current evaluation of the currency, and in their opinion, the dinar is worth $1.74. But, this was early 2017, and a lot has happened since then. So it's just my personal opinion. Again, all these videos are my personal opinion. They're not to be used for financial advice. What I don't want to see is people hawking their homes and stuff, getting into debt, running around buying Iraqi dinars or dung. What I'm saying is just my personal opinion based on what I know. Okay, so there's no reason for Iraq not to be reinstated at the 322 rate. All right, so I just wanted to give you a quick update on what's going on with China and how to fix the dung. Hopefully this was useful. If you like it, hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up for me, and feel free to share. Thank you. Have a good day.